So these color relationships are important to understand because you can communicate a lot with these relationships. Um, for instance, if you use what's called analogous colors, which analogous colors are colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, like red, red, orange, and orange. Those would be analogous colors, those three colors. And the way I've always been taught, it's usually in threes. For instance, green, green, and yellow are analogous. I guess you could continue along, but you're going to get more contrast. Anyway, if you use those analogous colors, you have a very harmonious sort of composition. If you use complementary colors, which are directly across from each other, for instance, red and green, directly across from each other on the color wheel, that's going to give you a lot more contrast. Um, and the way I always remembered this is sports teams always use complementary colors. Well, not always, but a lot. For instance, blue and orange directly across from each other, I think Florida. If you go, let's see, purple and yellow, I think the Lakers. Um, I don't know, red and green. I don't know if there's any teams. I think Christmas, but anyways, maybe that was a bad example. But anyway, you're gonna have a lot more contrast that way. Um, let's see, and then there are others called. So we have analogous or next to each other, and there's a good example of this on page 95. And this is your assignment is going to involve this. Complementary colors, triadic, which are three colors that are kind of at 120-degree intervals. Basically, they create a triangle. I don't know if you can see that. They create a triangle in the color wheel. And these are usually kind of complement each other as well. So keeping these hue relationships together, like I said, if you use some that are across from each other, you're going to have a lot of contrast. If you use some that are closer to each other, you're going to have more harmony. And so a good strategy would be, if you want something to really pop out, you might use a bunch of analogous colors except for the one thing you want to pop out. Now you would use something that's across on the other side of the color wheel. Make it a purple or something. And throughout this chapter, like I said, there are a lot of really interesting studies on the bottom right corners, these contrasts where they show the same color over top of different backgrounds, different saturations of backgrounds, and you can see sort of the relationship, some of the optical illusions that you get. So take a look at those. Let's see. Value relationships, that's another way to kind of provide emphasis or contrast. If you have a lot of different, a lot of really dark things in your spread, for instance, this on page 96, there's this ad spread for a play or something, it looks like. And everything's kind of shades of grays and blacks, and then the copy on the right is white, so it really kind of pops out at you. Where everything else kind of creates this harmony, and then the copy really is just kind of in your face, and that draws your attention to it. Value relationships, like I said, you can really create harmony within something by using different values of the same color. This Eco Taxi logo on page 97 is a good example of that. Let's see. Saturation relationships. It's basically the same as value relationships. Or if you have a lot of grays or colors that are the same kind of saturation and a neutral grays, and then if you have a really powerful bright color, it's going to obviously pop out a lot more. Temperature relationships. This is kind of interesting. This is where we start really getting into what you can do with color. And next week we're going to talk about even more. We get into color psychology and things like that. But temperature relationships, you just want to, like we talked about, you want to pay attention to what colors you're using because you want it to go along with your subject matter. For instance, on page 100, there's a spread for, something on the beach, chilling out under the sun. If you see that, they have yellows, oranges, in relation to the cooler greens and blues, which gives you this sort of, chilling in the water on a hot day. It gives you that feeling. And that's, that makes sense in this. You wouldn't want to have, nothing but cold colors when you're talking about summertime. It just doesn't really work unless you're trying to get that contrast. So we've talked a little bit about what to keep in mind with colors and how they play with each other. The other thing, and this is where we start to get into what colors can really do. Some colors tend to recede into the background just visually create this optical illusion, whereas other colors tend to really pop towards you. Generally, cool colors recede, and warm colors kind of pop out. For example, on 102, there's this kind of weird looking ad with a motorcycle, like a red-pink motorcycle, yellow copy, and a blue background. The blue kind of seems to recede, and overlapping these images also helps with that optical illusion. Where the motorcycle is in front of the blue, and the blue kind of recedes into the background, and then the yellow copy is over top of the motorcycle, which really kind of pushes that forward. And there's a lot of writing you can find talking about these relationships, what pushes in the back, and again, this all changes based on what other colors you're using here. So it's it's always relative. Just keep that in mind. So that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss this week. Is just start to get into color, understand these terms of hue, value, saturation, temperature, all these things, and kind of start to understand that. Next week, we're going to get into color psychology and color systems, coding with colors, and sort of why some businesses use some colors and other businesses use other colors, and that to me that's really interesting. And if you understand that, you can really start to kind of harness color and use it for good and not evil. So let's talk about your assignment real quick this week. I want you to do some magazine scouring, looking through magazines at advertisements, things like that. And I say magazines because that's typically where a lot of these elements are carried out in designs and advertisements, things like that. On the internet, you can find this stuff too, but it's not as pronounced as in print advertising. What I want you to do, we're going to find some examples of different color schemes. All right, when we go back and we're talking about analogous, and complementary, and triadic. I want you to find an example, an ad that uses each one of these color schemes. One ad that uses analogous color scheme, which would be like three similar colors, like a yellow, a yellowish green, and a green, or a red and orange and a yellow, something like that. I want you to find an ad for that uses specifically an analogous color scheme. I want you to find an ad that uses a complementary color scheme, for example, like a green and a red, or a yellow and a purple. And then I also want you to see if you can find a triadic color scheme. That one will be a little bit tougher, but see if you can find one that's uses like a green, an orange, and a purple, or a blue, a yellow, and a red. And there are examples. If you're not sure what those are, it's on page 94 in your book. All right, so that's three things. Three ads I want you to find using three different color schemes: analogous, complementary, and triadic. And then for the fourth one, I'm only giving you 4 this week since it's Labor Day and all that good stuff. For the fourth one, I don't want you to really pay attention to that. I just want you to look through a magazine and find an ad that really sticks out to you, just the coolest one that you can find. And then I want you, and don't really think about anything, just find one that says, oh, that one pops out at me. Then once you have decided that this is the one that really pops out, then I want you to examine why. Why the color scheme? What is it creating? A lot of contrast, and that's why you're attracted to it. Is it really harmonious, using the same different values of the same color, or something like that? And I want you to write a paragraph or so about that. And I want you to write a paragraph for each one of these, as what color scheme it is, if it's analogous, complementary, triadic, what kind of sense that you perceive that to be. Does it create a lot of contrast? Is it harmonious? Is it really bright in your face? So just a little bit about what each color scheme does for you, what you think they're trying to achieve with that, and how that relates to the product that they're selling, or whatever it may be. So a paragraph for each one of those, probably a little bit more on the fourth one, where you want, because I want you to examine the color scheme, and you can examine stuff from the first chapter too. Does the placement of objects have something to do with why you were initially drawn to this ad? So I want you to, four pages total, analogous, complementary, triadic, and then one that just really pops out at you. Let me know if you have any questions, and I guess that is it. All right, see you soon.